Someone you loved has worked their entire life to build a nest egg, and now it's yours. But hidden inside that inherited IRA is a tax time bomb that could cost your family up to 40% of everything you saved. Today, we're breaking down that 10-year rule and tell you why most families don't realize what they've lost until it's too late.
Welcome to Leibel on Fire with Amazon best-selling author and Yields for You portfolio manager, Leibel Sternbach. Leibel on Fire is supported by our ETFs, Yields for You Strategy A and Relative Strength Managed Volatility. Our mission is to help 1 million people retire with financial security. Now, the Financial Independence and Retirement Show dedicated to helping you build the life of your dreams as fast as possible with as little stress as possible. It's Leibel on Fire.
Leibel, it's good to see you. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Unbelievable. And I apologize to you and our audience. I'm nursing a sore throat. So if there's a little dropout every now and then, please just nod and say, I understand. So we're talking about this inherited IRA tax bomb. Leibel, exactly what is the 10-year rule that I mentioned earlier that everybody's talking about? And I'm wondering why it's such a big deal for people who have inherited a retirement account.
Yeah, so it used to be back in the day that, you earned money, you saved it up, you put it into a retirement account, just like the government wanted you to do because all the corporations bailed on their pensions and they created the 401ks. The retirement accounts, and you saved money and you would leave it to your spouse and to your kids. And they would be able to take it out as needed over the course of their lifetime. Now, as part of that, the IRS and Congress was, they didn't want people to save money indefinitely, right? They didn't want another, baron situation where with the robber barons, right? The oil barons, where we had all these tycoons that were putting money away and they were untaxable and, they kind of control the economy. So to prevent that from happening, Congress said, well, we're going to give you this ability to put away money tax-free. Not only that, but we're going to give you, a tax deduction for doing it. However, because we haven't collected our pound of flesh, to ensure that we collect our pound of flesh, we're going to make sure that you have to take distributions from this account and that you can't just leave it for your kids or your grandkids or your great grandkids and give them a leg up. Congress needs to get their pound of flesh, right? We need to fill our coffers and pay the federal payroll with your hard-earned savings. And so it used to be you do it over your lifetime, and that was okay, right? Okay, so you took out all the distributions over your lifetime. You passed, your spouse could take it over their lifetime. That was good. Your grandkids inherited it or your kids inherited it, they could take it over their lifetime, right? And so if you leave it to a grandkid who was, 2, 10, 15, 20, right? That's a very long time that they would take those distributions over. And it was a way of giving that next generation a leg up. Mm-hmm. Well, about 10 years ago, a little under 10 years ago, Congress was like, we need to close the gap, right? We don't have enough revenue coming in and we don't have enough workers working to make up for the shortfall of what we're paying out in Social Security and Medicare, which makes up, over 70% of the federal budget. So they said, how are we going to close this gap? And they said, well, we got all these retirement dollars that are just sitting there, right? You know what we're going to do? We're going to take away that ability to spread it out over your kids or your grandkids' lifetime. And we are going to force you to drain that account while you're still alive. And if you have the audacity to die before draining that account, we're going to make sure that the person who inherits it drains it within 10 years. And so the 10-year rule says that a non-designated beneficiary, so someone who basically is not a spouse, there's some other caveats, but basically someone who's not a spouse who inherits your IRA, they have to take it out within 10 years. And by year 10, that has to be a zero balance.
That's it. Let me make sure I'm getting this right, Leibel. So are you telling me that now the heirs have to drain that whole account in 10 years? I'm wondering how much money are we actually talking about losing to taxes here?
I mean, we're talking about a significant amount of money, right? So not only think about it, you're in retirement, right? You're taking out your distributions to pay for your living expenses. Mm-hmm. In the beginning, it's a decent amount, right? It's okay, right? It's within your means. And then you start getting into your 80s and the government starts making that 5%, 10%, 11%, 20% of the account value. And all of a sudden you're like, well, I was taking out, an extra 5,000 a year. Now I'm taking out an extra 20,000, 30,000 a year. Right. And you're paying that as ordinary income, right? This isn't money that you're paying like low taxes on. You're paying it as ordinary income. Now, when you're retired, what's your income? Your Social Security, right? Your distributions from your retirement accounts. It's not a huge amount of money by any stretch of the imagination, unless you've got millions in retirement accounts, which we have clients who have millions. And then all of a sudden those RMDs are a few $100,000. However, think about your kids, right? Your kids inherit this money. They're probably going to inherit it at the peak of their earning career, right? They're going to be earning the most amount of money in their entire lifetimes. And then all of a sudden they get this great inheritance that you left them, right? Your life's work. You left them this fortune that should take care of them and their grandkids and allow them to retire in comfort, allow their grandkids to have a leg up in life. And what does the IRS do? The IRS says, well, it's ordinary income, right? Well, they were already paying, 22% or 32% in taxes because you did well, right? You raised them right. They're doing good. They're making good money. And all of a sudden, now they're adding another, $100, $200, $300, $400,000 in taxable income, if not more, right, to their taxable income. And what happens? They jump up to 37%, 40%, right? If you're in California, that's like 60% effective tax rate. And now the biggest beneficiary of your retirement dollars isn't you, it's not your kids, it's not your grandkids, it's the IRS and the state coffers.
That's incredible. What confuses me, Leibel, is I keep hearing that the IRS just finalized their new rules in 2024. So what changed? Why are some people facing these mandatory withdrawals starting this year, 2025?
2025, yeah. So in typical government fashion, right? And this is what you always got to keep in mind. Every time you hear headlines about, oh, the government's doing this or doing that, or politicians say that they're going to do something and it's going to be beneficial for you. Well, guess what? The people in the government have to actually implement it. So 2017, Tax Cut and Jobs Act got passed. 2018, 2019, we got Secure 2.0 Acts got passed. And what that did was the combination of those changed the rules of how these inherited IRAs work. However, in the infinite wisdom of Congress, right, they left some ambiguity in the rules, and the IRS had, everyone had questions. How will these rules be implemented? How will the IRS actually implement these rules? And for the last, 7 years, the IRS has basically said, we're not quite sure and do whatever you want. Well, this year they had enough of telling us where you do whatever you want. And they came out and they said, you gave a very specific guidelines. If the person passed before 2020, you have one set of rules. If they passed after 2020, a different set of rules. If they were taking RMDs when they passed, you got another set of rules. And so now all of a sudden, for 2025, if you have an inherited IRA, you got to make sure that you're taking those distributions. You got to make sure you're taking the correct amount for distributions because there's a penalty if you take the incorrect amount. And so something that wasn't, you still had the 10-year rule. You still had to drain that account by the end of 10 years, but you didn't have to take RMDs, distributions every single year up until then, which allowed you to do some tax planning. But now, you're going to have to take that if you are pushing it off.
So what about this scenario? What if I've already inherited an IRA, or I know I'm going to inherit one soon? What should I be thinking about, or what in this scenario, what should we be thinking about now to protect as much of that money as possible?
Yeah. So if you're the one leaving the money to your kids and grandkids, right, then you want to think about who is going to be receiving this money and how do I make sure that they get as much of it as possible? And that means planning for these taxes. And you can plan for those taxes by doing Roth conversions yourself, right? So although a Roth account still has to be drained within 10 years, you're giving them 10 years of tax-free growth. And when that money comes out of the Roth account, it is tax-free, right? So it gets converted to a brokerage account, which in theory, they can work to make it tax-free indefinitely. However, they still need to empty that retirement status. So you can think about, do I convert the money now? Or do I allow my kids to get taxed at whatever their tax bracket is? Another scenario, right, is, well, market's correct, right? We know a 5% correction happens every 3.5 months, 10% happens every 18 months, right? 20% or greater correction happens every 3.5 years. Well, we can wait for those corrections to happen. And when that happens, do a Roth conversion at a discount, right? That is certainly one of the strategies that we use for our clients, right? We talk about a lot about not timing the market, right? You never know what the market is going to do, at least on the upside or really on the downside. But we know statistics, right? And statistically, certain events occur, and they occur with a certain frequency. And if we know they're going to happen, let's take advantage of it. That doesn't mean you should be sitting in the sidelines, not investing your money. But when these opportunities happen, right, is a great thing to take advantage of.
Well, it's my last question then. So here's this parent who they're trying to take care of their heirs, their children, their grandchildren, but now it sounds like they can get crushed by this 10-year rule. Is there anything that these kind of people can do right now to set their heirs up for success rather than failure?
Yeah, absolutely. So what you want to do is start planning this right now. And in fact, a very large percentage of our clients, this is what they come to us for, right? They come to us to help transition their money, right? Do that financial continuity planning so that their kids and their grandkids and their loved ones are taken care of when the time comes, and do it in as tax efficient way as possible. So the biggest thing that you can do is plan for it, right? So we do a free retirement tax SWOT analysis where we'll go and we'll take a look at for you, kind of where you are today and what does that future look like? What does that look like for your kids? What does that inheritance look like? What are the moves that we can make today, right? Or set you up so that you can make them when the time comes, so that you pay as little in taxes as possible and your kids have as much as possible. Sometimes that means, changing how we're invested. Sometimes that means being ready to do Roth conversions. Sometimes we tell people it means spending your retirement dollars, spend this account first over that account, right? Or getting a life insurance policy, because that might be the most effective way to pay for that tax bill. But everyone's situation is unique. And this is why we do that free retirement tax law analysis, where we'll take a look and we'll make sure that, one, you're protected and your lifestyle is protected, and that your spouse and your loved ones when the time comes.
Leibel, do you have any specific tools or help documents at yieldsforyou.com?
Absolutely. On our website, we've got a lot of tools for you. We've got a 60-second retirement plan that'll do kind of that basic analysis that we talked about. And it'll give you an idea of kind of the impact you're looking at. We've got a bunch of guides on our website, so go check those out, as well as, RMD and Roth conversion calculator. So you can get an idea, is the money going to be drained in my account while I'm still alive, or, how much will be left and how much taxes am I looking at? So you can factor for yourself, right, what is more beneficial to you and your beneficiaries.
All right. Leibel, thank you so much. And that's all the time we have for today. But join us next time when we reveal why don't time the market is actually terrible advice when it comes to inherited IRAs, and how market crashes might be the best thing that has ever happened to your inheritance, on the next Leibel on Fire.
If you would like to see how the Yields for You team can help you get off the Wall Street roller coaster and save you money on taxes so you can live the life of your dreams, book an appointment online at yieldsforyou.com or call 410-914-4894.
Yields for You is a registered investment advisor in the state of New York and only transacts business in states where the firm is properly registered or is excluded or exempted from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement. Information presented on this program is believed to be factual and up to date, but we do not guarantee its accuracy, and it should not be regarded as a complete analysis of the subjects discussed. Discussion should not be construed as an offer to buy or sell, or solicitation of any offer to buy or sell the investments mentioned. Annuity guarantees are subject to the claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. Content should not be viewed as legal or tax advice. Always consult an attorney or tax professional regarding your specific legal or tax situation.